Okay, so now we're going to be looking at color and how to diagnose color problems and how to treat color problems. So what we've got here, 4 images laid together using a contact sheet node, and one of those images is reasonable in terms of color balance and everything. It's not brilliant, there's some tone problems up there, but it's good enough for us to be able to use it as a measure, as a gauge of success to hold up against the other images. We're going to try to be balancing these images next to this one. Okay, first off, let's just hide those and zoom in slightly on a detail. And I think what we'll also do is zoom in a bit there. Okay, right. First of all, diagnosis of the problem. Well, just looking at it, it looks too blue. Well, that's a good start. Just a plain, simple visual appraisal. We can, if we want, maybe get some numeric values there. Readouts down here. So that's a Command-Shift-Drag. You can get average color values. Quite good, quite useful for some things. But in this case, we just look at the image. And we get a better view of it if we cycle through the channels R, G, B. Right, the R and the G channel, yeah, they're different in each image, but it's the B channel that's obviously too heavy, too much information in the in the cast image. So there you are. There's a good way of gauging a color issues to isolate the channels in turn. So how shall we attack this? Let's go first of all to a multiply. Now a multiply, let's go zoom in one more stage. A multiply in its natural state is just a brightness. It takes all the values and multiplies them together, or multiplies them by a fixed value. Okay. However, we can split those values according to channel and do a virtual slider in them. You select the number and hold down the Option key and drag. However, what I'm going to do, I'll put them back together, is to go to the color picker. Now, the color picker in its natural state looks something like this. This is too much information. I want to get all of that out of the way. Okay. So, too much blue, let's lose some. Now that's done something. It's certainly done something. Down here is looking better. It's not looking quite matched to that, but it's good enough. However, up here, in losing the color cast down here, we've gained some up here. It's made it look green. So what we need is a way of changing the mid-tones separate to the high tones. Now a multiply node can't do that. It changes all the values together. So color lookup, that's what we want, using a color lookup. Okay, so let's fix a point halfway across it. We're darkening the darks and we're lightening the lights a bit. So it's a simple contrast S curve. Okay. Okay, that's good enough. Now let's go out of color, back into color, I should say. So it's brought the contrast back in. We've still got a color problem. Now this is probably a good candidate for a multiply. Now, when changing color, when manipulating the color in an image, generally you want to avoid touching the green. Why is that? Well, I'll show you. Let's switch the luminance on, hide the colors. Now here I am playing with the red, making very large adjustments, but there's not a huge change in the brightness. Let's go a little closer. There's not a huge change in the brightness of that image. That's 1, 1, 1. Same with the blue. 1. However, play with the green, it changes the brightness of an image quite a lot. So, generally speaking, you keep away from making adjustments to the green channel, because you will also, as well as changing the color, you will change the lightness. However, in this case, it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing because the image is a little bit too dark anyway. So I'll raise it a bit, raise that green quite a bit, and lo and behold, it's not bad. It's not bad. Again, it's a good start. Let's just hide that and see we've dealt with a contrast issue and also with a color issue. Okay, now let's hide him. And one more. Okay, so we've done color lookup, we've done multiply. There's one more color node you really want to learn, and that's the add. Now what's our issue here? Let's go to Y again. We've got a general pastiness again. We've got a general pastiness. However, the pastiness seems to be even throughout. It's not it doesn't affect the lower tones any more than the higher tones. Let's just add some negative value there. And you see the difference it makes. So I've added -1. That's the lovely thing about programs like Nuke. You can add impossible colors. There is no such color as a -1. It's a value though, and as a digital thing, it recognizes a digital value. So let's get out of Y, and I think that's a lot better. That was quite a reasonably successful operation. So let's just have a look at them all together now. Well, that's not bad. That's not bad. It could do with some spotting and adjustments, but we've covered the main nodes I wanted to look at: a channel adjustment and color lookup, a tone adjustment in color lookup, a multiply, and an add. And I've also shown you how to look at channel information using separate channels, the RGB and the Y. Okay. There's one other thing we could look at, is how to look at saturation values. Now if we look at those images, they all have roughly the same saturation values. Let's throw in a saturation node here and desaturate it quite heavily. Okay, let's have a little bit of feedback on how we might get a good gauge of that, a visual gauge. We can look at the color channels, RGB, we can look at the luminance channels, Y, the luminance channel, but we can't see in this section up here, we can't see a saturation channel. Well, we can in fact make one up. We use a node called color space. And we do another one. Right, in linear, let's just show you this up close. In linear, so that's our in value. Out, hue, saturation, brilliance. Hue, saturation, value, in fact, to be pedantically clear. And we'll perform the operation the other way round on the out. So what this operation has done is this node has converted it in the output into hue, saturation, value, hue, saturation, brilliance, and this one has done the opposite. Now, how might this be useful? Well, let's turn that off for the time being. What we see here is really essentially nonsense information. It's the three channels converted. RGB have now been converted into hue. That's what our hue channel looks like. Every grey value is a different color. G, that's saturation. So every white value is saturated, and every black value is unsaturated. And B is our brightness channel, essentially a grayscale map. So it's quite a good way of getting good visual feedback on what we're looking at. Now what we can do now is go back to there and just use a shuffle. We want to just look at the middle channel, which equates to the saturation. Let's convert that back again. Don't convert it back. Thinking about it, this extra node was not really useful. Let's get rid of it. So what we're looking at is saturation information. Now you'll notice that the image on the right, which I adjusted, is a lot darker. I can make it even darker by completely desaturating it. Now what I've set up with this color space and shuffle event is a way of looking at saturation values as grayscale values. You see, unsaturated, very dark. So you've got a nice little toolkit now for looking at colors. We can look at values using the data down here. We can go through the channels, RGB. We can go through the brilliance, the Y, and we can use our common sense. Thank you.